Caleb with Brownells here, back with more guns of Escape from Tarkov. So I'm here with Jesse Halteman, aka JesseKazam, Twitch streamer and YouTuber. Jesse, we're going to be taking a look at the M4 platform and the 416 platform, and kind of like the ADAR will fall into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, these are the guns of Escape from Tarkov. Escape from Tarkov is a video game that's really set itself apart with its immersive and really realistic manipulation and modification of all sorts of firearms. And it's no surprise that some of the ones that are used the most, especially later on when people have a little bit more money, is the AR platform. And so as somebody who has really, once again, found a love for guns and firearms through this game, it's really cool and pretty surreal to be sitting in front of some of these stuff like the HK and some of these AR style weapons. It's really cool.
Yeah, and that's like such an interesting perspective, because I'm looking at it the other way. Because like I deal with this stuff almost every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one in the game, or in the game, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one I was messing with yesterday. So it's crazy how those two kind of combine.
Yep.
But taking a look at them here, let's start with that HK416.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And this is, in the game, this is, one of the creme de la creme as far as like guns goes. This was added a little bit later than, the M4 style guns. And it's really expensive, really nice, really, really awesome. I don't know much about HK or how these guns are in real life, but they seem to be beefy, really powerful firearms.
Yeah, and it's a super reliable firearm platform, and this one here is our short barrel full auto variant. So we're gonna take this out to the range. We're gonna have some fun with it. You'll get the full experience, and then kind of moving on from there, we have these are your American AR-15s.
Yeah.
So they're safe and semi-auto. So that's your two.
Yeah.
There's no third position on that selector lever on these, but everything's the same except for that.
Yeah.
So, for example, like in Escape from Tarkov, your AR-15 would be like your Russian variant, which is the ADAR. Yeah. So that's essentially your AR-15 in there. And then the M4 basically is just a full auto version of that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, these guns are obviously very modular, and the HK almost sits in like a class of its own. At least it's perceived that way. Is that because HK makes everything, and with more of your AR style platforms, you might buy a different manufacturer's lower or upper or barrel? Why does the HK kind of have this reputation as this like really high quality? Is it just the quality of it, or?
Yeah, so first of all, HK does make a very high quality firearm.
Yeah.
But that one uses their piston system. So that's a piston operated system, whereas
Understood.
these are direct impingement or gas direct impingement.
So that's the separation. Is it's actually a different kind of gassing system?
Yeah, it's a different actual like core functioning system. So because of that, a lot of the modifications you would put on your M4 or AR-15 will not fit on the HK and vice versa, but some will, such as like your stocks and your grips. Handguards won't, barrels are not interchangeable. So different things like that. So that's why it's kind of set aside into a completely different class.
And that's super interesting. And definitely with this platform, especially in Escape from Tarkov, you've got a lot of guns earlier on, if you're a newer player, or some of the ones you get access to first, which aren't super modular. You get a lot of the Russian guns like SKSs or Mosins. There's not a whole lot going on there. And as you kind of go up, where a lot of players end up in Escape from Tarkov later on into either a wipe or just as they continue to play, is this platform. And in Tarkov, everything is obviously got numbers behind it. This might reduce recoil by a certain amount. This might reduce recoil by a certain amount. And it's really cool because then it encourages that like interchangeability of parts. But then on the flip side, we were talking before this about how it was weird for me to take a look at a short barrel HK because in Escape from Tarkov, the really only super viable one is the really long barrel suppressed, this really huge gun. So it's cool to see that and see how modular they are and see Tarkov get as close as they can, but still a video game. They're still going to be, this is the best and this isn't.
Yeah, and I mean in real life, kind of the short barrel HK that's the one that's
the one to go for.
That's the one to go for.
Yeah.
Adding a ridiculous barrel length and stuff like that to it is only really going to hinder you in most scenarios.
Yeah.
Unless you're like posted up shooting long distance, that's really the only time that's going to shine. Every other situation where you're running and gunning, you want to have something with a shorter barrel.
Yeah. And now this is a great platform for me to ask a lot of questions as somebody who's new and learning about firearms. Is that, like, you know, from your perspective as somebody who has used a lot, you know, how do you feel about Tarkov's modularity system and how they have to represent those things? You know, I'm looking over there, we see some suppressors, and in video game world, those a lot of times obviously reduce noise, but also reduce recoil in Tarkov. You know, you got your high capacity mags, which negatively affect your ergo and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel like, obviously it's a video game, but for the most part, a lot of that is pretty intuitive in how it transfers from these attachments in game and in real life?
A lot of it is, yes. So this is also a good time to mention that the weapon building system in Escape from Tarkov is so in-depth. Like, you can start with a lower receiver and basically just with a ridiculous amount of parts available to you that you buy and put together. And when I say buy, we're talking about in-game currency. It's not a pay-to-win kind of deal, fortunately. But yeah, so there's just so much you can do, so much you can buy, so much you can personalize.
Yeah.
And then you take that with you into your raid. And another factor to it is that when you die, that gun's gone.
Yep. You spent all that love building it up, and it's gone.
It's gone. It's not one of those respawn with your gun kind of deals. It's gone. So you got to kind of plan for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you shouldn't just be pouring all your money into your guns every raid, because you're going to go broke. You gotta build stuff, especially early on, scaled down.
Yeah.
You don't just throw all your money away, because you will do just that, throw all your money away.
Yep.
So you got to kind of pick and choose when you want to take your
nice stuff out.
Your nice stuff out, yeah.
And you can build up to it.
Yeah, but no, and as far as those attachments, how they reflect in real life, in Escape from Tarkov, the best way to reduce recoil, for example, is with the muzzle device.
Yeah.
Same thing in real life.
Understood.
Best way to reduce recoil is with the muzzle device.
And those are the brakes and stuff, but additionally suppressors. Suppressors are kind of very common in Escape from Tarkov, especially later on, and they add a lot of that recoil reduction in addition to sound reduction as well. Just
as they do in real life. Yeah.
That's very interesting. We also have a few optics here, and that's something that a lot of people, especially recently, a lot of people have been using a lot more. That's another one of those things where the amount of optic choices you have, mid-range, long-range, red dots, hollows, are pretty insane in Escape from Tarkov. How many of you do you feel like they represent in real life pretty well? Do you like switching it up? Do you like following what you like in real life?
I tend to follow what I like in real life for the most part, like your LPVOs, or your low-power variable optics. This is a Trigicon right here, but in the game, the one in there is the EOTech Voodoo, which I really like. That's a great one.
One of the most used ones. And that was interesting for me to find out, once again, coming at it from the video game world, is that we started seeing that a lot recently in the past few months and years of the game, that LPVOs became very standard, because you can just get close, you can reach out far, it's just easy. And it was funny to find out that that's almost how it's been going in real life too, that's been people have been adopting that as a platform because of its versatility. And I thought that was a video game thing. In my head, I was like, why would you use that over a red dot or a hollow? And I was like, actually, I didn't realize that that's actually how it's going in real life too.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So a lot of that stuff is reflected in real life, because this is another good time to mention the game developers and why there's so much care and attention to the guns in the game, is because the developers are gun people. Yeah. So that makes it right there. They're gun people that are creating a video game. Yep. So let's talk about, just real briefly, let's talk about who Kiba is.
Oh yeah. Kiba is one of the developers at Battlestate, and as I understand it, he literally is just a guy that walked into the office one day and just said, "Hey, I want to help, and I want to learn how to do this." And now he's the one that's modeled almost all of these guns that we have in Escape from Tarkov, and it's, pretty industry leading as far as I'm concerned on how they're manipulated, all the different animations on checking the chamber, reloading, quick reloading, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so he was a gun guy that came in off the street and said, I want to learn how to make video games. Yeah. And not the other way around, as we're used to it.
Yes.
So that's why it works.
That's why the the care is there and the attention to detail.
Yeah, and you mentioned ergo earlier. Let's talk about what ergo is.
Yeah. So in Escape from Tarkov, ergo is just ergonomics, and what ergo reflects in the game is how long you can hold the weapon, because your stamina, you've got like a stamina bar, and that drains as you're holding the weapon up as you're aiming down sights. And so the higher the ergo, the longer you're going to be able to do that. The weight of the gun also affects that, and also how quickly you can get it from high ready to an aim down sights. And so things like if it's heavier or a longer barrel or a higher capacity mag, all that kind of stuff in the game a lot of times reduces it. I think I would love to see it still feels a little bit unrealistic. Once again, at the time, the longer barrel HKs, the suppressors, the higher capacity mags, they don't do enough to dissuade people from using that.
Agreed.
But obviously that's ergonomics is kind of like putting a number to that is a made up thing. But I do imagine that if you're building a rifle to use, that ergonomics is something you're thinking of. How does this gun feel? How does this firearm, how can I manipulate it?
Yeah, exactly. And so, in the game, stuff you can do to raise your ergonomics, like the biggest thing being your grip.
Yeah.
And that's reflected in real life because, like this grip here, for example, this isn't a standard angle. It's a little bit steeper of an angle. That's better ergonomics for me and my arm length and where I run the stock. So, yeah, that stuff's definitely reflected well. So are the optics. So different optics in the game can kill your ergo pretty good, which... ergo affecting how fast you can get it up to your eye, how easy you can aim with it. That's reflected in real life with the optics. It's like, for example, this Night Force ATACR, if I'm using this versus that red dot, I'm going to be able to acquire my target, especially at medium distance, a lot faster with that red dot than I can with this ATACR. But at long range, I'm not going to want to use a red dot.
Absolutely.
So the pros and cons are there. Same thing with your magazine capacity.
Yeah.
The larger the capacity, the heavier it is, the more it's going to kill that ergo.
Yeah.
So just like in real life, I'm not going to be able to hold up my firearm as long with a heavier, fully loaded, D60. And I think that's reflected well.
And I like how because the punishment of you having to manually repack those magazines.
Yes.
If you're out in the field with 4 60-round mags, then not only is that heavy, but once you're out of ammo, you're in a really rough situation having to get that ammo back into those mags. So that's a pretty cool touch. Yeah, having to manually
pack those magazines adds a whole nother depth that a lot of other games aren't doing. Like for example, like Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff like that. Let's say you have 300 rounds. You fire 10 rounds in a magazine, you can hit the reload button and it just automatically...
Yeah, you're always reloading to a magazine that's full.
Yeah, Escape from Tarkov.
And in Tarkov, if you shoot 11 rounds and you've only got 19 left, if you reload through all of your full magazines, you'll end up reloading to a magazine with only 19 rounds left, unless you pack it up between that then and now. So it's your decisions mean a lot in that game, absolutely.
So very punishing, but at the same time very rewarding.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is one of the biggest draws to it. So those are kind of these weapons platforms here, the M4 and the HK416, as well as some of your attachments. So we're going to keep diving into this with more Guns of Tarkov. So Jesse, appreciate you coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Diving into these with me. So join us next time when we bring you more Guns of Tarkov.